joining. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us on this Tuesday morning. Hope you're doing well. If you're joining us, presumably you got paid. We like to have these webinars after each monthly distribution, and we want to let you know how to download and interpret your royalty statements. There's a lot to dig into here. So the way that this will go, Sydney and I will both have a brief deck that we'll present. I'll talk about how to find, locate, download your royalty statements in the MLC's member portal. And from there, Sydney will walk you through some file formatting, some information you can find in those statements, and how best to interpret it. From there, we'll open it up to a brief Q&A. Couple pointers, and I will remind you before we jump into the Q&A. Moving forward, we are actually going to stop using the chat box. If you have any questions, please share them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. That's the only place that we'll be referring to questions, so we don't want to miss anything that you've got. Please make sure you share it there. And then separately, this is a pretty focused webinar today on royalty statements, how to download them, how to interpret the information that's in there. If you have more general questions about the MLC, we have bi-monthly MLC do's and don'ts webinars. If you have specific questions to your specific member account, we'll suggest that you reach out to our support team. We want to keep this general for everybody's reference rather than kind of sharing your personal information with others. That's probably the safest way to go about it. So again, I'll remind you before we jump into the Q&A, but with that, I'm going to share my screen. Always my favorite part of this whole process. Sydney, let me know. Can you see this?
Sean. 1 second. Let me see. Yep, you're up. You're good.
Cool. Excuse me. So we are the MLC. Hopefully you know that. It's on our backgrounds. Here it is, the Mechanical Licensing Collective. Before we get going, I'll say that we have really active social media accounts across the internet, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, X, Facebook, or YouTube. Please give us a like, share, subscribe, follow, whatever your term is. Personally, I'm an Instagram guy. I scroll that content a lot, and I think it's really good. It's really fun to connect with people there on Instagram. Separately, we have a lot of archived webinars available on YouTube. So if you have any questions that you couldn't get to, or if you want to see some past versions of this very webinar, check out our YouTube page. This might be archived one day, it might not, we're not sure, but there's a lot of really great video content there for all sorts of MLC questions, workflows, processes, tools available for your perusal there. So check that out, and yeah, lots to dig in. All right, so before we get into how to download a royalty statement, I think it's really useful to talk about how our distributions are created, right? The important thing to note is that our distribution schedule, which is in the top right-hand corner of your screen, I will note we have an updated version of that schedule available on our website right now. But that's all based on what we call our 75-day royalty distribution timeline. And to lay it out, it goes something like this. If we're using January usage as an example, the first date that you want to keep in mind on that timeline is day 10 following the close of that usage month. So in this case, that'd be on or around February 10th. That's when we take a snapshot. What that means is we're taking a picture of all of the data in the MLC's database, and that's what we use to match against usage data that we get from the DSPs. And that's how we know how to pay you the royalties that you're due. So first, we ask that if you're looking to make any sort of updates to your catalog and you want it captured, and again, as an example, that January usage, make sure that those updates are made by February 10th at the latest. Separately, it's also important to note that if you're making any changes to your banking information, we close that option from the 3rd to the 14th of each month. This allows our royalty finance and payments teams to make sure that all of your payment information is up to date, so that when we come up on or around the 15th of that distribution month, we are about to pay you to the right banking information as you've updated in our database. So then finally, the 75-day distribution timeline closes in mid-April for this example timeline. So for January usage, it'll get paid out in mid-April. That is roughly 75 days. And again, you can find at any time on the MLC's website an updated distribution schedule, such as you'll find in the top right-hand corner of the screen, letting you know exactly what usage month is being paid in what distribution period and when you can expect that target distribution to happen. So now, presumably, you've gotten paid and you want to get into your royalty statements. You could do that directly from the home page of your member portal. I would suggest starting by pointing over to the Royalties tab in the menu on the left-hand side of your screen. A couple things on this screen. First and foremost, what this will auto-populate with is the current distribution, which you can see that you can cycle through previous distribution periods in the drop-down menu at the top of the screen. This will give you the top line number that you've been paid for every payee account in your catalog or in your member account. Now, for many of you, it may just be the one payee account. What you see here is an example of maybe a bigger company that has a few different payee accounts that they need to manage. But if you just have the one, that's all right. Mine only has one. You can look at a few different summaries of your royalties here. The payee activity is a PDF that gives you a little more detailed, but still very general total of what you've been paid in that distribution, whether it includes new royalties, debits, reprocessing historical royalties, different categories of what you've been paid. We don't have a screenshot of it here, but I do want to make you aware of the distribution notes that are available here. You'll see a hyperlink at the bottom of the screen that says View Distribution Notes. This is a really good kind of like Rosetta Stone of everything you're being paid in that distribution. It tells you what DSPs were included in the distribution. And very importantly, if something wasn't included in the distribution for any reason, why it wasn't included. It'll also tell you what usage periods you're getting paid for that DSP. So before you even get into how much you were paid, you will know who is paying you in that distribution. But once you're ready to get into what you were actually paid, you can click the statements links all the way at the top right side of your screen where the arrow is. So again, you have a few different filtering options here on this screen. You can cycle, again, if you have multiple payee accounts, through those payee accounts. You can cycle back to previous distributions. And then if you wanted to filter on individual DSPs, because this does auto-populate with every DSP that's paid you in that distribution, you could do that in that drop-down menu as well. But when you load this screen, it will give you an individual total and statement option for every DSP that's paid you. And you can select what statements you want to download with the checkboxes on the right-hand side of your screen. You can select all, deselect all, or select a chosen few DSPs, whatever is your preference. From there, click the Continue to Download button, and you'll get this window. We love options at the MLC, so we have a few more for you here. You do have two formats available to you, as well as two file types. In terms of formats, you can download either a work summary file, which is a rolled up total of what you've been paid on any given song by that DSP, or you can download a royalty detail file, which will give you everything. Granular detail down to the ISRC and track ID, individual recording information. If you want to know exactly what your song's made on any given DSP, you want the royalty detail file. From there, you can also choose either a consolidated file or an individual file. This is in reference to the DSPs that have given you royalty statements, that distribution. You can either download all of the chosen DSPs in one file or individual files for each DSP. The caveat being that if you consolidate a file and you choose all of the DSPs or a large group of DSPs, be aware that that is going to create probably a large file that takes some time to download, or might give you some issues in trying to open it in one Excel file. So just be wary of how much you're looking to get in one file, and note that it might have its limits depending on the size. Finally, once you've made those options, click Download, and you'll get this screen. Couple final notes here. This is telling you that the files are generating. They will not be downloaded to your browser. Instead, they will be emailed to the email address of the user that requested it. So do make sure you're by your inbox, because that's where you will get those files. And subsequently, if it's a really big file and you're given a download link, those links I think do expire. So if you're ready to download this file, make sure that you stay by your inbox so that you're ready to download the file once it is sent to you. So with that said, in a minute, I'm going to hand it over to Sydney to get into what's in those royalty statements. But in the meantime, there's a lot more that you can learn about the MLC, and you can reach out to us at any time. First and foremost, I'll point you to our resources page, which has a lot of really helpful tips and tricks, guidance, FAQs, categorized by type of user. If you're a self-administered songwriter or a DSP or an administrator or a publisher or a lawyer or an educator, on and on, we have specific helpful resources for you categorized by your needs. We are also here to help, though. If you have any further questions that we can't get to today, you can reach out to our support team, open Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central, by phone, contact us form, or chat. You'll note that there's a little chat bubble the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and we can attest you will be talking to a very real person. So we will help you as soon as we can. And separately, if you want to scan that QR code, that'll connect you to our support team directly as well. Anything we can do to help, we will do. So reach out to us. And again, here is all our social links. Give us a follow, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. You know the drill. Meet us there, and we'll be happy to connect with you. And finally, all of these graphics, and again, the distribution schedule I mentioned before, is all updated on the MLC.com. So if you don't screenshot something quick enough, or you don't find a particular version of this webinar on YouTube that you would like, you can find everything that we've talked about and more at the MLC.com. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. I will hand it over to Sydney, and she's going to let you know how to interpret all of the data that you just downloaded in those royalty statements.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Welcome, everybody. Again, my name is Sydney Evans, and I serve as the team lead of royalty and income tracking over in rights management here at the MLC. And yeah, like Sean said, I'll help you go through the layout, the statement layout that you'll see when you download your statement. So now it's time for my nerves to be wrecked, Sean. Let's see.
You're more on top of it than me. I am Sean, by the way. I didn't introduce either one of us. Great to meet everybody. You are good, Sydney. I can see it.
I'm good. Okay, cool. So yeah, basically the statement layouts that I'll be going over today, you can actually find that on our website. So if you head on over to themlc.com, you'll go to the How It Works tab. It's the first little tab right here. And then there's a sub tab titled Blanket Royalties. And I believe Callie put that link directly to this page of the website in the chat. Callie, if you haven't already done so, please do. And you can either choose to read along with me and listen along, or you can see I'll share my screen the entire time. So either way, you'll have your royalty detail statement layout and the work summary statement layout, both the different types of statements that Sean previously described. And so today we'll go through the royalty detail statement layout because that's going to give you a more granular look into your statement. So you just click the link and it'll download. I already have it up for you. So we're gonna go on over here. Sean, can you see the statement now? Awesome.
Sure
Cool.
can.
All right. So yeah, this is pretty much what your statement looks like. Of course, it's not going to look exactly like this. This is just the example, and it includes just different field types, the description. So these are like different definitions, and then the example of what that should look like in your statement. And now, as you can see, there are 62 lines of information here. I will not do that to you today. But what I will do is just highlight key pieces of information that you will probably want to go directly to when looking at your statement. So to get started, you first have your distribution field type. And so this will include all the information regarding the distribution. So for example, we just had our distribution June 13th. So in your statement, you would see 2025 06 13. So that's pretty much what you would directly look at in this field type. But then if you scroll down, you'll see the member payee information. And so you'll have information such as your member name, which is displayed on the portal, and then the member MLC number, which is a unique identifier applied to your member. And then it's the same information for your payee. So a payee is the payable account that is under your member. So if you're a member that has several payees, that'll determine how long this section is going to be. But again, it's pretty much the same information, right? You'll see the payee name and that unique identifier, the payee MLC number. And then if you're an administrator, you'll see the same information, the name, the number, any additional information here, but then you get down to the original publisher, MLC number, and name. So this is pretty much repeated information, just again for the member, payee, administrator, and original publisher. That is all held in this member payee field type. So then if you go down to the usage context, I would say the key pieces of information that you would want to reference here are the usage period start and end date. So again, we just had a June distribution that covers the March usage, right? So you would see the March start and end date in these two rows. And then you have some additional helpful information, but again, in the usage context, I would say these two pieces are like the key pieces of information that you would want to see. And again, in this statement layout, it's helpful to just reference the different definitions. And again, like you'll have examples of that. So if you're wondering like, well, what does that look like in my statement? You have that here. And then if we scroll to the work field type, you have the MLC song code, which we know and love, and that is just another unique identifier applied to each work that lives in your catalog. And then you'll have just different information, right? So you'll find like the work primary title, any alternative titles that are listed. You'll find the work writer list, and then if at the very bottom you'll see the work payable percentage, and so that's all encapsulated in this field type. And then it's pretty similar with the recording information, right? So you'll have, well, this is where you'll see the DSP track ID. And so if you're wondering what the DSP track ID is, right, let's go over here to the description. That is a unique identifier assigned by a DSP or a digital service provider to identify the sound recording tracks. And that usually lives under the ISRC. So the ISRC is the International Standard Recording Code, which again, you're going to hear unique identifier a lot because that's pretty much, it's all about the data. So you're going to see a lot of unique identifiers. And so the ISRC is the International Standard Recording Code. Again, it's a unique, internationally recognized 12-character alphanumeric code for the identification of a sound recording. And this is what it looks like. And so again, the ISRC is here, and then the DSP track ID is what lives under those ISRCs that you see. And then you'll see different information such as the recording title and the display artist name, the duration, all different types of like miscellaneous information that can be helpful for you when reading your statement. And then you have the product type, which is pretty similar. You have the product title, product version, then you have the display artist name, labels, distributors, release dates. That's pretty much what you would see in this section. And then the field that we've been waiting on is the transaction field. In this field, you'll see, let's go over the processing type. So the processing type, if you're wondering what that is, you can come over here to this section and you can read and say, this is the description to identify the usage process during the current reporting period versus the usage process during a prior reporting period. And so this is where you'll see your regular royalties, right? For the June distribution, we're covering March usage. The March usage that you see would be considered the regular reporting. And then you have the reprocessing and then historical. And then for the correction indicators, this is an indicator that is applied to identify where a royalty debit, which we consider a reversal, or a credit, which we consider a correction adjustment has been applied. So this is actually pretty important. So if you're seeing something is off with your statement or you're wondering what this debit is like, you can actually filter for the R, which stands for reversal or debit, or C for correction. And I think that's pretty important to review when you're looking at your statement, because should you have any questions, we have a great support team that you can reach out to get a better understanding of that. And then you have the number of usages, so that's the units of usage. You have your royalty rates, and then at the very bottom here, you'll have the distributed amount. And so again, all of this is available on the MLC's website for you to review. And this is a very helpful tool because, again, I only highlighted key pieces of information. But if you're wondering, like, oh, well, what does this actually mean, right? Like, what does the shared adjusted royalty rate really mean? You can actually go into here, look at the description of each field, and look at an example of like what that looks like in your statement. So yeah, that pretty much covers it for the layout portion. I will toss it right back to Sean for a Q&A. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, Sydney. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So yeah, as Sydney mentioned, we'll open it up now to a Q&A. I don't currently see any questions, so this will give me another moment to kind of share any guidelines if you do have any questions. The first being, we will not be using the chat box. So if you have any questions, please utilize our question and answer box at the bottom of your screen. And again, we're trying to keep this a little more focused on royalty statements. So if you have any questions about downloading or interpreting your royalty statements, please share them now. Lisa asks, is the MLC song code similar to any PRO codes or totally different? Totally different. We do not use any sort of codes used by other CMOs. Your codes are, we do share them with HFA, who is our data vendor, but that's the only place. We are entirely separate as an organization and from the work we do in our database from any sort of PRO like an ASCAP or a BMI. Okay, any other questions? Maybe, Sydney, we just did that great a job. Dallas asks, in the beginning of the webinar, you guys mentioned that it deposits 3 months ahead. We get ours monthly. That's right. The MLC does do a monthly distribution, but it's based on the usage period from roughly 3 months prior. It's a 75-day distribution cycle, but we do pay out royalties on a monthly basis. Lisa asks, what does CMO stand for? That is for, I forget exactly what the acronym is, but it's for, Sydney, it looks like, are you typing it in? I will let you get to that one, but it's basically collection societies. So ASCAP, BMI, places like that. All right, so Lisa, I might suggest joining one of our kind of more general Q&As about what the MLC does and doesn't do, but essentially Harry Fox Agency, which does other sorts of mechanical licensing does other sorts of mechanical licensing that the MLC does not do. They are our data vendor in that they help us with the processing of some of our data in our database. We are otherwise two separate companies with two separate types of licensing, but they help us process that data. Okay. Does SongTrust and MLC collect different royalties? It depends on your relationship with SongTrust. So SongTrust is not a CMO or a collection organization. They are a distributor and publishing administrator, depending on your relationship with them. If you have engaged SongTrust to collect mechanical royalties, they will actually be collecting those royalties from the MLC and paying you. It really goes to kind of what your relationship or your account with SongTrust is like. If you work with SongTrust, they also collect mechanical royalties, but it would be coming through us. Thank you, Sydney. I don't know why my brain fart was not helping me out with CMO. Got to get more coffee. I don't know, but Active Management Organization. That looks like we might be at the end of our questions. We'll leave it open for another second or two, just in case anybody has some late breaking thoughts. But I will take a second to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really great to talk to you. We hope that you found this useful. And if you do have any more specific questions to your account, what you're seeing in your royalty statements, any difficulties downloading your statements, you can reach out to our support team at any time. And we can help you from there. Odalis asks, so every sound exchange deposit they get from the MLC, we do not work with sound exchange. They collect a different royalty than the MLC does. Again, some of these questions might be really great for our more general Q&A about what the MLC does and doesn't do. We'll go over kind of where the MLC falls in the broader landscape of royalties in the music industry, but we don't collect the same royalties as the sound exchange or an ASCAP or a BMI. So okay, that might be it. So I will kind of do the call out, going once, going twice. All right, I think we're good. Thank you again, everybody, for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Find us online. Let us know how we can help you further. And thanks again. Have a great rest of your Tuesdays.